Good evening. I wonder if anyone's here yet. I will hang around a little bit. Actually, there are a couple of people here. I'm never sure. Is one of them me? I don't know if I count as viewing my own stream in the preview. Oh, Halogen's here. Hello. There is at least one person here. Yay. Oh, you've been here for 5 minutes. Hello, Amber, as well. Okay, those numbers are not fake. There are real people here. How are we all? I I have this thing where I don't know if anyone else lives in Sydney, but it is we have some weather this week. It's just been raining and windy and stuff like that, and like in the apartments where I live, something is banging when the wind blows. Like whether it's like someone else's like screen door or something like that, or it's our own windows or something. We're not entirely sure, but it's yeah, it was like waking me up multiple times last night while I was trying to sleep, and it was just like, oh, it's already a Monday. You don't have to go all in on it. So yeah, I guess winter is here. It's not officially winter yet, right? We have like 11 days, 12 days, and then it's officially winter. But it's feeling like this is a hint of what's to come. So I think it's gonna be pretty rainy this week, and I guess we will just have to deal with that. Um, let me think. What have I been doing last week, between last week and this week? I've been continuing on my whole retro gaming journey. I think I showed people um this toy that I've been playing around with that does a whole bunch of retro games, and I use this one for basically anything. Oh, there's a little Krang from the Ninja Turtles. I just happen to have a sticker, and I realized that you can take this section apart and you can put stuff inside. So I have a little sticker inside there. And I've been using this for everything up to kind of like 16-bit era because it doesn't have any thumbsticks or anything, so I don't go into like the era afterwards. But I'm using it for like arcade and like Mega Drive and stuff like that. But the other thing is one of these. Um, I have a ROG Ally. Oh, you can see the reflection. I already have my Godot tutorial stuff there. And on this thing, I've been playing. I've been emulating old Xbox games, which is kind of fun because actually fun, but also kind of silly at the same time. Is I literally have my old Xbox somewhere, but I can't be bothered setting it up again. I don't even have a TV or monitor that it can connect to nowadays. I think. I don't know how old the connections are on my TV, but definitely none of my monitors will take like an S video input or anything like that. And it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice and convenient to emulate on something like this, because it's just like a handheld and things, and it's kind of cool because you can do handheld stuff that used to be like TV console things. So a game I've been playing this week is this really really old one called X-Men Legends, and it's like this kind of top-down action game in a sense with a whole bunch of RPG elements. Like you get the X-Men and you put them into a squad and you play as the squad. So you've got like swapping between characters and doing all your real-time combat, and then in between as they level up, you give them new stats and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of blasts from the past. There's a bit of I guess like looking at the prices of brand new games nowadays, I'm a bit like, oh, that is super expensive, and I'm not sure if I need to get that when I've got old stuff that I haven't played yet. So like a new Doom game came out, and I'm old enough to have played the original Doom when it was new. So it was kind of exciting, but like I realized that I haven't played the two Doom games leading up to it. So I went back to like the 2016 Doom and I started playing that as well. So It's kind of funny. Like, I think that all of the time I spent playing stuff like Warhammer and things like that, and like Warhammer has a very, very strong correlation with buying stuff that you're not using. Um, because it just takes so long. You buy something, you have to build it, you have to paint it, and then you've got to organize to play games and stuff like that. So it's actually really, really hard to get from I bought something to I'm actually playing games with it. Um, and I think we still do that with Steam. Like people's Steam libraries are full of stuff they haven't played. And I'm starting to get that kind of attitude now where I'm like, I know it's exciting when new stuff comes out, but just play something you've already got. And some of these games that I've bought and stuff like that were in there at the time when they were released. They were like the best games out there, and it's like they're still going to be really good. You don't have to like buy into the FOMO and then like play stuff the second it's released. But it's kind of like it's back and forth. Zero saying the only full price game you're going to be buying is Silksong and GTA 6. Well, the downside of Silksong, right, is you have to get a Switch 2 to play that. So, well, I don't know, but I know that it was part of the Switch 2 announcements. But surely it's not an exclusive, right? I don't know. But yeah, the downside possibly with Silksong. Wait, am I right? Was it Silksong, Hollow Knight Silksong that was part of the Switch 2 things? It was first announced for Switch 2, right? But you're pretty sure it's coming out for all consoles and PC, yeah. So you'll be able to get it on something without having to buy a Switch 2. I actually don't know how expensive the Switch 2 is in Australia. Like, I know it's like hard to get in the US and stuff like that, but it might not be as hard in Australia. It's like the whole kind of the other side of the tariffs thing is that stock outside of America is now easier to get because there's things that they would have shipped to America that they're not going to anymore. So it might mean that we'll have an oversupply here of like basically English language switches. But who knows? Who knows? I have not looked into getting a Switch 2 because I hardly played my Switch 1. So again, the same philosophy goes back again where I'm like, why don't you play something you've already got? So I have Breath of the Wild. I never played. Well, I mean, I played, but I never finished. And I think it would be worth finishing that. And so it's kind of like I'll never buy a Switch 2 until I finish that on my Switch 1 or something like that. Yeah. Haljan says, the thing that helps you with impulse buying during Steam sales is that you know that it'll be on sale again later. Yeah. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, unless I want to play that game right now, it's not worth buying, even if it's on sale. Like, FOMO is a thing. You can get caught up in it, or you can just kind of try to figure out how to control it instead. So, yeah, I get that feeling. And especially because you know that, like, I remember, like, early on, big Steam sales, getting really excited and buying a bunch of stuff. And now it's like, you know, like, they're like clockwork. There's going to be 4 Steam sales a year. So unless you've got a plan to play something within the next kind of 2 months, there's no need to buy it because it'll go on sale again later. I keep thinking I should get Baldur's Gate 3 because every now and then that goes on sale, and it's one of those games that everyone says is just like, you got to play it. It's like in the year it was released, it was like one of the best games ever, and I think it's still at a point where it's kind of outsold most everything else on Steam. So it's super, super popular. It's resonating with a lot of people, and everyone says this is a great game. You've got to play it. So one day I'll get it. And every now and then it goes on a tiny bit of sale. It goes from like $100 down to like $85 or something. Mitchell, how's it going? Good to see you. I'm just kind of just talking crap before I get into actually doing stuff. Oh, there is one thing I've been thinking of doing. I don't know if anyone here. And very cold, yes. I love it in Sydney. Like at the moment, we're just like, no. It's like winter's come on so quickly. I think we had a similar thing like a month ago when I got back from Singapore, and the first day I got back, it was freezing and it was raining, and I was like, what happened? Like the week before I left, there was a 30-degree day, and then it was like 17 degrees and raining when I got home. I was like, I was only away for a week and a half. What the hell? Who flicked a switch between summer and winter in that time? At least it warmed back up again for a little bit, but I think it's now like jumper weather, and it's just gonna be jumper weather from now on. Haljan says, you also friends gifting you entire JRPGs during late high school means you have many hours worth of backlog in your library. Speaking of great JRPGs, there is a thing in the back of my head that says that I need to play the Persona series. They're just like, they're so stylish. I just love the art direction of like the way that the UI is really kind of like active and beautiful and that kind of thing. I actually don't even know what the story is, but people like story's really good. You'll love it. But I'm like, yeah, I know that with stuff like Persona, I'm gonna need to kind of say, I have a spare 200 hours. All right, let's pick up, I don't know, Persona 3 or 5. I think those are the entry points people talk about being good ones. Like maybe Persona 4 is as well, but I don't know. But I could look up like, which is the best one to play first. Because someone told me about that. I remember it's like 2016, 2017, someone said, "Hey, Persona's really good." I don't know which one it would have been back then. It would have been Persona 3, I assume. And I was like, okay, that's good to hear. I'll put it on the mental list that I will never get through because there's so much stuff on my mental list. And then one day I might play it. And there's so much of that. And then I find instead of experiencing new games, every now and then I'll find one single game that has an interesting enough mastery loop. And then I'll just get caught up in that. So I think, what is it? My Steam's closed at the moment, but lately I've been playing Warhammer Darktide, which is a Warhammer 40,000 first person, but I won't call it a shooter because there's heaps of melee combat as well. But it's like a first person 4-player co-op fighting game, I guess. Very much a continuation of the ideas that were created in Left 4 Dead. So hordes of enemies, you've got to fight them off, you've got to work your way through a space and accomplish a mission. I think the last time I looked at that game, I was bordering on 600 hours. So when you think about how long it takes to complete other games, I could have completed, depending on the game, like 10 other games in the time I've been playing this one, or even more. But there's this kind of thing where it's like, yeah, I could complete a lot of games. Or this one game that I'm really into, I could just get really, really good at it. I could keep playing, keep practicing, learning new ways of doing things, and get some fulfillment that way. And it's this kind of thing where you've just got to like let it happen. So whatever you're feeling about like the game you want to play, it's like, all right, I'm all in on this, and so this is what I'm gonna do. And so I'm trying different builds, playing different classes and stuff like that. I think I got like this with Borderlands back in the day. Mitchell saying, ooh, JRPGs, super want to get into Final Fantasy, but just got into Magic the Gathering, and they're doing a Final Fantasy set soon, so it's feeding into the hype. Well, Magic the Gathering is another thing. Actually, talking about it's exactly the same feeling. I feel like Magic is the kind of thing that gives you this kind of collector's hype. And on top of that collector's hype, you've got the mastery hype of like trying to get as good as you can get at something until you can kind of like play at this top tier. And it's like the similar things like esports and stuff like that, where you're just like trying to get really good at something. Haljan's asking which Final Fantasy Mitchell's interested in. That's an interesting one. Are you in for Final Fantasy VII remakes, or you're interested in checking out old stuff? Oh, I've got speaking of old JRPGs, on this toy, I have Chrono Trigger installed because people are saying it's like, this is like one of the best games ever made. And a lot of the art style is Akira Toriyama, who people may know from Dragon Ball fame and stuff like that. And I'm just like, yeah, I need to play that game. At some time in my life, I need to play that game. But the first thing I installed on this was Pokemon Fire Red, And I got about 3/4, like looking at walkthroughs, I got about 3/4 of the way through that and then got bored because every fight started to feel the same. And I was just like, all I'm doing is like moving from one area to the next and having a whole series of like nearly identical fights. So I'm just like, okay, it's fine. I think if I was a kid again, I would still finish Pokemon, but nowadays I'm kind of like, yeah, it's all right. I'm gonna move on to something else. But it might be Zelda, might be a Link to the Past, um, or Chrono Trigger or something else. But I've also been going through arcade games on this. Playing through like the Ninja Turtles arcade game and then Turtles in Time. It's really easy to kind of tick those off in a sense because they like if you have unlimited credits, like basically if you had unlimited coins to put in an arcade machine, you finish one of those arcade games in like an hour and a half. So you could sit down once and just play through the whole thing. So easier to kind of go through those than something like a Zelda or a Pokemon, which is like 20, 30 hours just if you're beelining it through the story. What are people talking about JRPGs? You're not sure yet about which Final Fantasy. Haljan says, your intro was Final Fantasy 3 on the DS remaster. And it feels like the online fan base for that is countable on one hand. Yeah, I feel like especially here in the English-speaking audience as opposed to Japanese, Final Fantasy VII was the breakout hit that made Final Fantasy happen in the West. And I think that has something to do with it coming out on PlayStation at the kind of peak of PlayStation's fame, but it seems to be the biggest one either way because it's the only one that's had the full-on remake. Like, it's not even just like a remaster or something. It's like a complete rebuild of the game with new mechanics and stuff like that, which I kind of want to play at some point because 7, when I played on a PlayStation, Final Fantasy 7, and it was super exciting, and I remember loving it and what happened in it and stuff like that in the story. It's been so long I can't even remember the story, but like, yeah, I remember it being awesome. I also wonder whose PlayStation that was, because I never owned a PlayStation, so it must have been a friend's, and I must have like traded them one of my consoles for the PlayStation temporarily to play each other's games or something. I can't even remember. Yeah. So what are you saying? Mitchell's saying Fire Red was a bit basic and later games felt a lot better. Maybe I need to move on to what are we thinking? Diamond and Emerald or something like that. Something that has a bit more, because Fire Red is a remake of the original game, so it's very, very kind of like it's just open space and you just walk around and you fight people and you get better, and then you fight people in gyms and then you get better and stuff like that. And there's less story going on. Like, there's a pseudo story, like there's background elements. There's like a tower with ghosts in it and stuff like this, and there's Team Rocket and things. But it's kind of background story rather than narrative. And I have a feeling like if there's later Pokemon games where there's actually a narrative flowing through and stuff, and you see a rival more often and they actually have like, there's some stakes in it, I might get hooked more. So maybe I'll look at other ones. Mitchell is suggesting Soul Silver and Heart Gold. All right, I'll check it out. And Haljan says Sapphire. I always never know as well which of those are actually the same game. Because, you know, it's like there's so many of them like renamed the same game, and every game has 2 names minimum, and possibly a third, right? Because like Fire Red and Leaf Green, there's another version of that. Like, is it Emerald or no? That's later. But there's like 3 versions of this one game, and it's a remake of the original Pokemon as well. So it's like 4 different names that give you the same games, not exactly the same, but it's close enough. Haljan saying Final Fantasy 14 is pretty cool if you like MMOs. Yeah, 14 seems amazing. I have a friend who is a kind of a diehard MMO person, and I remember talking about potentially getting back into MMOs. And he got me into Guild Wars 2 for a bit. And I understand Guild Wars 2 is really good, it's really famous, people love it. But I couldn't quite get into it. I got into it at a certain point, and then it was just like, it's kind of boring. I think I've turned into an action game person over the years. Like I was a full-on World of Warcraft person. I think there was a period kind of, I want to say like sometime around 2013 to 2017, that kind of era, where I spent 2 nights a week raiding with a team that I helped run. I was like 2IC for this group kind of thing. And we got the ahead of the curve achievements, which is like defeating all raid bosses on the harder than normal mode before the next release comes out. So we were just so diligent. We just kept doing it, that kind of thing. So it's interesting to now not really like that gameplay anymore. I've gotten into like much more kind of reflex-based action games and stuff like that, which is kind of funny because I'm older now, so my reflexes are physically slower than they were back then, but I've gone back into the other way of playing, so it's like, it's interesting. What do we got going on here? Okay, so I have recommendations for which Pokemon games to play next. So I might hop over to a Zelda and then come back and play another Pokemon. But I think I'm happy to let Fire Red go at this point. Maybe I'll just like look up a plot synopsis and be like, all right, I'm up to date. I put like 20 hours or something into it, so it's enough, right? So Soul Silver and Heart Gold, Mitchell is saying, is a good spot for one of those, since it's technically the game after Red and Green. People love Black and White as well. But Halogen saying you're not sure which era I'm interested in, which is I don't know, but I think maybe the early era, just because it's got the recognizable Pokemon. Like I was really excited when I got my first Pikachu. I like gave it all my rare candy and put it on my team just because it was Pikachu. So like there was something there was a recognition in it there. And I don't know how much, because I know that like as we go through the ages, people move on from the original characters, so I don't know if they're still there or not. So Mitchell saying that the Soul Silver and Heart Gold follow on from the Team Rocket story. Hoenn, which is Sapphire, Ruby, and Emerald, is cool, though maybe too much water. Lots of water. Oh, Dongshu's here. Hello, how's it going? Halogen plays Final Fantasy XIV, but as if it was a solo game. Yeah. I think there's heaps of people who are like that, whereas like there's an MMO, but you're like, I'm not actually here to party up with people. I just want to like see what I want to see from this game. And so it's like you're playing an online game, but you're playing it like as an individual player, which is totally fine. Halogen saying, surely if you're into reflex heavy games now, then you'll practice it enough to maintain them. Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing is like I did play. This was actually at UNSW. I played a bit of Valorant. And it was funny how bad I was compared to students. But then maybe that was just a matter of not knowing how the game works. Valorant, the time to kill in Valorant is incredibly low. So if you have a skill differential, you're generally going to lose out there. But, if I put 600 hours into it, I would probably be okay. There's going to be a level where I'll be fine, even if the raw physical reflexes aren't there. There's still a way to play to be good at stuff. Like, because I find that with Darktide now, I'm pushing into the hardest kind of difficulties that game has. And we're talking about last night with some friends. It's interesting that Darktide is a panic simulator. Like, they put you into these high pressure situations, and it just induces panic in you. And your success is based on how good your kind of muscle memory and your reactions are to deal with lots of different threats. So you can have a specific threat, like this dog that runs at you and it jumps on you. And if it jumps on you, you're pinned and you can't do anything until someone else on the team saves you. But all you need to do is like swap to your melee weapon and do a push, which means you have to swap weapons, hold down one button to block and your attack button, and it pushes them away. And if you do it the right time while it's pouncing on you, it knocks it down. So there's a skill expression there in getting that right. And you hear it coming, it makes a specific sound, you see it coming, and it jumps at you. So there's all this kind of thing where you can, if you're prepared and you're calm, you can do it very easily. And then as you get into harder difficulties, instead of it being a dog you can prepare for, the dog turns up in the middle of an attack sequence from like 8 other special creatures. So like there's this huge thing trying to hit you with a mallet. There's people shooting at you from the sides. You got to be like, all right, I got to break line of sight to the shooters. I've got to dodge the overhead swing from the heavy melee enemy. And there's a dog coming somewhere, so I need to look around and see which direction it's coming from and stuff like that, and then block the dog at the right time and not get hit by the other things. So it's this kind of like scaling up of how calmly can you react to situations when they give you, like, in the earlier difficulties, it's one situation at a time, and then when you get your muscle memory going, it's like multiple different situations at a time, and you can be like, I have to dodge this one, I have to shoot that one, I have to block that one, and then you just like kind of like when you start doing it right, it starts to feel really good. So it's like one of those games I think has been designed really well to slowly ramp up player skill. And I've gotten to the point now where there's nothing left to really collect in the game. I've gotten all the weapons and leveled them all up and that kind of thing. So it's like I've completed a lot of the things that are like extrinsic reward that you might get. And now the reason I'm still playing is the intrinsic reward of just going, I got better. You know, I kept doing, like, learning things, losing at certain difficulties, and then learning how to deal with them, and then start to like get into this beautiful flow state kind of thing, which is, I think, for a lot of us, flow state is like why we game. It's that kind of like, feeling like you're making the right decisions as you go and stuff. So some games, a lot of fun like that. Final Fantasy 14 glorified fashion simulator. That is such a thing. I played a bit of Warframe because I think I lean towards stuff like first person shooters and looter shooters and stuff like that. And Warframe was called Fashion Frame by people who, like, the true end game to Warframe is collecting cosmetics, painting them funky colors, and getting a really cool outfit. And I think there's not enough attention paid to how much joy you get from that. I think what was funny was seeing Infinity Nikki, which I played for a little bit, which was like a gacha game that was like a whole, like, instead of spending your gacha on new characters, it was new outfits, and you could mix and match in the outfits and stuff like that. And it was just like, yeah, I was like, this is it. Like, this is peak fashion simulator. Except apparently recently they've kind of screwed the whole thing. So they hit a certain point, they had a certain fan base, and they were like, all right, the fans are in, let's start milking them. And they just started upping the prices on everything and stuff. And it was just like, and then they retconned the whole story. They said it was all a dream and it's no meaningless. And they've cut out a lot of the initial story that they first put into the game a few months ago. And yeah, it's very awkward. I think they may have murdered their own game, which is, like, I can't believe you'd do that with a game that was so successful. If they had done nothing in particular with that game and just kept it going on the kind of trajectory it was doing, I think they had a money printer on their hands. But instead they just kind of murdered it, and I'm just like, I don't understand how that happens, but it's yeah. And I reckon it would really suck to be the devs on that, because they're like chasing, because the changes came so fast. It's full of bugs as well. They hadn't really finished developing it. So it's just like, yeah. Oh well. I feel bad because it was so unique as well. I feel like it was a really interesting, unique game, but GG. Mitchell says Soul Silver Heart Gold would be very good since it's large focus on some of the older gen Pokemon, but it's widely regarded as one of the best Pokemon remakes. Oh, okay. Soul Silver Heart Gold. I should write that down. Oh, you even go back to Kanto a bit. And Mitchell also played Warframe. Oh, Mitchell, you have the same addiction problems that I do by the sounds of it. I put yeah, I don't know how many hours into Warframe. I don't think I'm into the thousands, but I'm in the hundreds of hours. Destiny 2 is where I ended up with like I think 2,000 hours. I think the thing about Destiny 2 that got me stuck in was a bunch of my friends and myself. We made ourselves a clan, and we were once a week doing the 6-person raids and stuff. And we went through and we beat every raid in the game. And it was this joyous kind of thing. It reminded me a lot of the World of Warcraft days where you get together regularly with a group of people and you go and do difficult content. You start to think and plan about how you're going to beat all the different fights and stuff like that. Super, super interesting. Um, but I feel like Destiny 2 is over now. I know it's still officially running, but the main storyline that took them nearly 10 years to tell has finished. And I think that was like a full stop at the end for a whole lot of us. And once we finished that, we're like, okay, we're done. Thanks. We'll move on, you know. And they're still trying to kind of keep people in the game and give them stuff and things, but it sort of feels like it's finished. Um, we joke that it's very, very much like Marvel. So once Avengers Endgame happened, like, because there was this huge build up over the years, and we're always excited for the new Marvel movies, and everyone was like getting to this. It was weird, right? Because it's not like they were great movies. A lot of them were hit and miss, and some of them were okay and stuff like that. But it was more just like comic book characters on the big screen. You get excited about these huge blockbusters, and then you're kind of emotionally involved with these characters because they've been with you for like 10 years, and they have their final massive climactic battle and they save the galaxy and whatever, like, I hope I'm not spoiling that for anyone. I assume people either know about it already or don't care. But yeah, they have their big final thing and it's done. Story's finished. The characters are finished. Most of the actors, their contract ends there. They go off to do other movies, so it's fine. The tough thing is that then they tried to kind of keep it rolling and start up new stories, and things like that. Was one story arc finished, now we start the next, and it hasn't really happened yet. And it's been many years now since Avengers Endgame. Actually, I don't know. Wait, let me just quickly look this up. When was Avengers Endgame? 2019. So in the 6 years since then, Marvel's been trying to kind of like turn the money printer back on, and I don't think it's really happened. And it's kind of like you've kind of got to let people breathe. I feel like when you finish something, let it go, and then come back in a few years' time with something else, rather than trying to keep momentum going in something that's actually naturally had its dramatic arc and finished. So Marvel's that, and Destiny 2 is like that as well. The problem is, I think that a story and a company are two things that are like kind of nearly an antithesis of each other. Like, a story has a natural progression and a finish, whereas a company wants to be in this kind of steady increase kind of thing of like, growth and customers and stuff like that. And when those two get conflated in a weird way, you end up trying to force a story to happen when it should be taking a break. And I feel like that's where Destiny is. That's where Marvel has been languishing for years. Although I say that, and last week, I think it was last week, I saw Thunderbolts, a new Marvel movie, and I thought that stood on its own quite well. Like, yes, it is attached to the whole kind of Avengers saga and stuff like that, but I think that was actually a decent story on its own. Mitchell is saying, you think that they kind of lost what made the movies good after all the big scale stakes and character cameos. Yeah, I remember watching Iron Man and then getting the kind of the after credit scene saying that the Avengers were coming and just being like, oh my god, they're gonna put the Avengers on the screen. You know, it's like, oh my god, we're gonna get like Captain America and stuff, and it's just like, oh, amazing. And nowadays, you could not get me excited about another Marvel character. You could be like, we're gonna take whoever your favorite character is, and put them in a film. Like you could say someone like me, where we're doing the X-Men again from the beginning, all new people and stuff like that, and they'll all be part of the MCU and linked to all this stuff, and I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. Even though the X-Men are like really kind of like, because I'm child of the 90s, right? In the 1990s, the X-Men were the biggest thing, and the Avengers were like a side story in comparison to the X-Men. I think the cartoon show was a big deal at that time. I can't remember what it was that got me into it. I think it was actually computer games. But yeah, nowadays if someone said we're remaking the X-Men, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I'll I'll get excited if it comes out and someone actually says it's good. But until then, I don't give a shit. And I think that's like that's where we are when the story has run its course, and like they've already released so many characters that you don't get a new feeling out of them. Mitchell's saying Thunderbolts definitely went back to the original reason what made Heroes good. The fact that the heroes would go in to help despite the risk and sacrifice they might have to put themselves through. Yeah, there's something in that. And I think that's actually going back to Stan Lee's kind of philosophy in the creation and the writing of superheroes. He was like, he didn't never wanted to have a Superman. He wanted everyone to have genuine weaknesses. And things like Spider-Man, like, where it's like, yeah, he's super strong and he's really powerful and stuff, and he could kill anyone he wanted. Like that's that kind of like um power of a superhero, but he's weighed down by the burden of responsibility and caring for people and trying to keep his loved ones safe. And so all the stories kind of revolve around that instead, which I find really interesting. Um and I think that those stories resonate better because they hook into our psyche in a really interesting way, because then um we kind of relate better to the characters if they have something much more human in them. And you can see when superhero movies fail at hooking us, because there's not there's is something human enough in any of the characters. I mean, they're kind of lucky because they got Florence Pugh, who is a really, really genuine, strong, emotional actor, and I think she did really well in Thunderbolts. So she actually played that, not like a schlocky superhero movie, but like a real person with real issues, and I really enjoyed that. Um, Mitchell saying focus on the characters in the movie helped a ton too. Oh, what's his name? Lewis Pullman, who plays I don't want to spoil stuff. He plays Bob, this guy in it. He's really good too. Um, yeah, since a lot of the characters are kind of not super well known, really help viewers become attached to these characters now. Yeah, yeah, I think they gave them a lot of genuine kind of humanity. We're just saying, so people actually have an attachment to these characters now, rather than people being attached to big characters because of the big and well-known history behind them. Yeah. Bob, yeah. Bob was fun. There is one other thing. Has anyone here got an OLED monitor? I've been thinking about upgrading my monitor. So the one I'm using at the moment is an old IPS monitor from, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, I think, and it's fine. It's still working, although I can actually see. So this is the monitor that the webcam's on at the moment. I can actually see bits of the monitor that are not consistent brightness anymore. So the way the backlight's working is not as good as it used to be and stuff. And I've been thinking about going OLED to get like a really, really nice gaming monitor. So very, very fast response times, and very high contrast, really good color reproduction and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone else has splashed out on one of those already or has any opinions on it, but I've been thinking about it. I'm not sure. I know that like I can afford it, um, but they are more money than I would have spent on a monitor like in the past. I think. I think the one I've got now was like $500 6 or 7 years ago, and I don't think that's like the top end OLED, like a 4K OLED monitor now. The average price is around $2,000, and I was just like, whew, that's like I can get a whole PC for $2,000, but maybe because people just say that it really really changes how good things look. So I'm just like, maybe I could do that. I don't know. Um, I have to think about it. There's some stuff that's on sale at the moment. The Samsung ones are on sale at the moment, so I can get it down to like $1,500 or like $1,300 if I get a 27-inch one. So thinking about that, that's not super expensive, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to go places and look at them and see whether they actually look that much better than my monitor. If I'm wowed enough by the raw eyeballs to screen experience, maybe if that's good enough, then I will like think about it. Anyways, enough chit chat. Shall we continue with Godot? Where are we? Okay, so last time, this is where I just loaded up the uh, Godot teaching thing and said continue where I last left off, and I think we're here with functions. Halogen's saying, yeah, going in and actually looking at one seems like the best way to go about that. Yeah, I figure if you're gonna spend like $1,000 to $2,000 on a monitor that you like, because monitors, for me, monitors always transcend upgrades. Like my computer has 3/4 of the parts in it have been upgraded since I bought it. So the monitor lasts through multiple upgrades. So getting a nice one that you like the look of is a good idea, because you're probably going to keep a monitor for like 6 or 7 years or something like that before a new tech supersedes it. Whereas your computer, you might actually be rolling upgrades in between. Mitchell missed last stream. What happened last time? I don't know if you'd seen this. The Godot tutorial thing. Well, this is the bit that I skipped because I thought that was stuff I already knew. So I started doing the Godot tutorials on GD script, which is their particular Python-like programming language. And I like it so far. It's quite nice. There's nothing, well, because I'm not really that experienced in Python. Like, I've used it a few times, but it's not something that like I didn't like spend a year developing things in it. It's not like my C or C++ knowledge is like way better. So it's not that bad that it's not exactly Python. I'm not getting any weird red flags from it the same way that Lua kind of annoyed me. There were certain things in it that I didn't like, and so that made it harder for me to decide to use Love 2D. That was the first engine I looked at. That was just because it was Bellatra, and I was like, yeah, let's go for it. Godot so far has not shown me any reason why it's not a worthy engine for me to use. But that's because I haven't gone that deep into it yet. So I literally have not done anything in the Godot engine yet. What I've been doing is going through their tutorial, because I keep gushing over this tutorial and saying, like, if you wanted to learn how to code specifically in games and stuff like that, and you wanted to learn all these concepts, like, look at these. Like, what is code, your first error, and like coding your first function, learning variables, game loop, learning if statements and conditions. Somewhere in here there's loops and stuff. It's not the same order that I would teach it, because it's very game based rather than like actual kind of fundamental programming based. But it's still kind of like, if you finish this course and you're kind of paying attention the whole time, by the end of it, you're more than capable of like being a programmer, or starting to kind of learn more depth about programming. So it's really cool. yeah, so I think there was at some point where I was partway through this and I was like, no, screw it, we're just going to do the whole thing. It doesn't matter if I know some of this stuff already. It's still like interesting enough to see how amazingly well crafted the educational side of this is, that I'm like, all right, let's keep going. It's like someone's gone through and like distilled what is best about good computer science courses, uh, and um, and put it into this. So we've got a few lessons left. We'll probably finish this tonight because I don't see this taking. What do we got? It's 8:45 now, so we're probably like an hour and a quarter or an hour and a half left on the stream. So I don't see this taking longer than that. Depends how much I stop to have a chat and stuff. But you know, we'll do this. And then the next test for Godot is not the language itself that we're going to use, but the engine is a piece of software that runs stuff, and it like connects to Visual Studio, VS Code, I think, and stuff like that. So see how all of that fits together and see if that works for making a game. And if it does, then I may consider the exploratory phase over and just be like, all right, first iteration of the game, we'll make it entirely in Godot. And only if there's a problem with that will I then say, all right, maybe there's a problem. Let's go check out Unity or Unreal or like back to Love 2D or something like that. Otherwise, like, let's just continue with this and see where it goes. So let us go on with our lesson here. So obviously I had read some of this stuff, but let's go from the beginning of this lesson that I'm at. So we're talking about adding and removing values from arrays. They're calling it appending and popping, which implies that it's all on one end of the array, I assume. So it's going to be on the tail of the array. So we have learned how to create arrays and how to loop over them. Real strength arrays, you can add or remove values from it at any time. This allows you to queue or stack data. So this is cool because this is the same kind of thing that I would have taught for variable length arrays. Like we use linked lists in C when I'm doing it, but if it's a variable length array, it allows you to build a stack depending on where you pop from, or a queue also depending on where you pop from. So tracking orders in a restaurant management game, isn't that great? That's exactly the kind of thing that we're doing. So lovely to see this as the example they're using in this one. So in this game, customers order meals that end up in a queue. You need to prepare them in the kitchen. In this example, we simulate orders arriving and getting completed over time. So tomato soup gets completed and moves over to completed. Toast moves over burger. All right, so we've got this. We get orders and we move them. So obviously 2 arrays here. One of them has things that come in and out as a queue. And then completed is, I guess, also a queue. So there are arrays here. When a customer purchases a meal, you want to append it to the array. Then as you complete a meal in the kitchen and serve it, you want to remove it from the array. So this is a standard queue. So append is on the tail, pop front is off the head. So the oldest thing there gets popped. Mitchell, yeah, they knew. I mean, it's not we're not making up a new genre when we're saying restaurant management sim. So it's like it's an example that could have come up. Okay, try to read the code below before moving on. Do not worry if everything. Don't worry if not everything makes sense, as we'll break it all down. Okay, waiting orders and completing orders, 2 empty arrays. You add an order with a meal name, and it appends it to the waiting orders. To complete the current order, we take the first order, which is popped off the front of the queue, and we add it to the completed order. So really, like, it's kind of what we were saying before. You take the oldest thing and say we've completed this, and you move it to the list of things you've already completed, and it goes at the end of that list, so it's the most recent thing that you've completed. Notice how we call some functions by writing a dot after a variable name. Like a given value type can have subvariables. It can also have its own functions. Yeah, so we're getting this idea that objects have functions attached to them. So very much this kind of object-oriented thing. Halogen, surely they made it specifically for you in this moment. So obviously the people on stream, there's a couple of people on stream who aren't necessarily chatting. One of them must be one of the Godot devs because they've seen me say Godot, and they're changing the examples they've got specifically for me. That's the only possible option for what's going on here. That's what Mitchell's saying. Yeah, maybe the maker of the page watches the stream and changed it for you. Yeah, 100%. I don't see any other possibility. I don't know. Do you? I definitely don't. It has to be that, right? Yeah. Kid says, just thinking about Penguin Diner. To be honest, what's Penguin Diner? I don't think I've played that. Oh, that's cute. Oh, you can play it. Oh, this is totally like a Alright, I'm gonna skip this. Do we start here? Maybe I shouldn't have skipped it. Are you getting audio? Hang on, you're not getting audio. Do I need to... I shouldn't have skipped all the intro. Anyway, okay, I'm just gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. I didn't need to... I didn't need to play that. I just... I love it when it's just someone puts something in chat and I'm just like, all right, let's go. I didn't need to play that right then. But anyway, I assume that's like that kind of thing that you go and pick up the order and then you process it and do stuff. A little bit of Dave the Diver in there as well, where you have to work the restaurant and stuff like that. I think that most of that audio was just coming through my mic here. As opposed to, because I saw that I have computer audio here, but I don't think it was actually coming through, but it was loud enough on my speakers here to go into the back of my mic. The kid saying you played that a bunch as a kid. Mitchell saying Overcooked and Papa's Freezeria. There was another game I played a bit called Cook Serve Delicious, if anyone heard that. It's like it's a pretty lo-fi kind of game. It's like really simple graphics and stuff like that, but it got really sweaty. Like it was very, very hard to always make perfect dishes on time and stuff like that. So it was kind of fun because it just ramped up. It was really funny. Okay. So we've got the two lists and we work through the queue on one side and then we put things in the finished list on the other side. And we're talking about the functions that attach to variables. Kind of precursor to the idea of making our own objects and making functions in the objects, which is like, very object-oriented way to code and very common in games to do that. Okay, let's break down the code. They're saying queue of orders, you add things to the queue. And you use a string to represent the meal when we call the add order function, right? Completing order, we remove it from waiting orders by popping it from the front. And then the pop gives us a temporary variable, which we hold until we finish processing it. And then we add it on. We call arrays like waiting orders a queue. First element we append to the array is the first one we remove. Yes. I don't know if I'd say it exactly like that. I would have maybe said something like the oldest element. Although the first, it's kind of the same thing. Yeah. Using arrays stacks is similar. Factory game where you need to retrieve materials from stacks of crates. They arrive at the factory piled vertically and you need to take them from top to bottom. Right, so we would get the heart from the top, and then the gems, and then the sword. Yeah, so this is really just like having an array and modifying one end of the array. So a stack, everything goes off the end, which is the back of the array by the looks of it. All right, they're not building it here, so you're not adding anything. They're only removing things from the top of the stack. Right, and this is showing you what's left in it after you pop it. So the sword shield after you've popped the gems off it, and then you... Oops. Oh no, this only runs once. Okay, so they're just saying if you remove something from it, it's the last thing in it because you popped back. Okay, I don't think any of this is fundamentally new. But it's also kind of funny when I talk about this and like talking about, oh yeah, queues and stacks and stuff like that. And thinking that when I was teaching people this, I would spend like 2 hours showing what a queue and a stack is before going into it. But I guess that's the difference. There's a difference between never having seen these concepts before or being kind of quite familiar with them. Every time I say stack, you get Magic the Gathering flashbacks. So what is the stack mechanic in Magic? Because I've not really played Magic that much. I've got friends who play it, and I play other games, but I've never really gotten into Magic. I think that's been good for me. It's been healthy to not do that. I got enough Warhammer as it is. I have enough things that are gonna like sap my money. Honestly, computer science helped a ton to understand card game cast triggers. Oh, that's how spells resolve. So you put them in a pile and then they resolve in inverse order. That's interesting. And that actually works really well because you're physically using the fact that you have cards to make that work, which is cool. Yeah, last one on the stack goes first. And there's probably like game implications in that as well. It's funny how you say that computer science helped with card game triggers because I feel like there's so much in games, like in logic games and stuff like that, that makes perfect sense just because we have spent a lot of time playing logical systems. So there's this sort of correlation between computer science nerds and people who know and play certain kinds of games. Looking at you, Factorio. So at Canberra, where I work, when Factorio released, what was it? Did it go into 1.0? Or was it just a big new release that came out? Like someone said a joke in part of the company Slack saying that like the easiest way to kind of take down your competitor in the tech space right now is to just send all of their engineers free copies of Factorio and watch that company's productivity take a nosedive, which is pretty funny. Okay, so let us look at implementing this function for the kitchen. So it says here that the waiting orders array will be filled over time. So we're not doing the waiting orders. They're going to come in. And then what we're going to do is look at the orders in the waiting list. And then pop the front order off and then append it to completed orders. Okay, so in order to do that, we need a temporary variable to store the current order. And that's going to be... Do we have tab complete? No, we don't. Is going to be the front of that. And I assume that pop front doesn't have any input. It's just returning something. Yeah, okay. So we've taken the first order off and then we complete it, which means we put it in our completed orders. I think it was append. Yeah, and that's going to need the order itself. I don't know if there's anything else we need to do here. Oh, we see it running over here. Sweet. Okay, second one. This is the stack. Crates are piling up on the platform. Move them out of the way by popping them from the crates array. So this is a while loop. You need to remove them from the top to bottom using the array's pop back function. Your code should remove all the crates in the array using a while loop. Careful, if you run a while loop carelessly, you can lock the software. So, got to make sure that my condition makes sense. So it's called crates, and it says, oh, you can check if the crates array still contains values by writing while crates. So its own value is maybe how many things it has in it. So as long as it's not 0, this will equate to true. I gotta remember the syntax for a while loop in this. Was it a while do? I can't remember. Well, let's find out. While crates, we're going to pop back. We don't have to do anything with it, do we? Let's just see if that runs. And we'll see if my syntax is correct. No, it has a colon to say that this thing is starting. Yep, okay. That works. So that's good. At least, because I don't actually do any work on this project other than during streams. So with a week gone by, I could still vaguely remember the syntax for the while loops, which is good. Mitchell's like, because it's like Python, yeah. But I actually don't have instinctive Python syntax. So I've used it so little that my instinctive syntax goes to other languages instead. I'm at least not putting semicolons on the end of everything. So I think we should be happy that I've progressed to the point where I'm not putting semicolons on every line. Okay, for loops. We learn to loop over all the values in an array using for. So for every value in an array, do this. What if you need to access the 3rd item in the player's inventory, or the 10th item? Dedicated notation to access one element in the array by index. Okay, cool. I don't think this is something that's going to be too difficult for us to see. 0 for the first element in the array. Index 1 is the second, blah, blah, blah. Index 3 will be the 4th element here. Oh, they've labeled them 0, 1, 2, 3, so that makes that easy. So it uses that item. Oh, I like how it just makes it bounce. So they're not removing the item, they're just saying that you're using it. How would you access the 3rd item in the inventory array? Should be 2 for the 3rd item. Yes. Okay. Accessing the last values with negative indices. What if you want to access the last or second before last item in the inventory? Oh, it is Python. The negative indices is such a Python thing. It always freaks me out being a C programmer, but it's so useful. It is a Python thing, right? Like, I remember this from somewhere. It must be Python. Okay, very convenient. We need to quickly access elements from the end of the list. How would you access the 3rd to last item in the inventory array? I think that's -3. Mitchell saying, you're laughing because you teach Python and one term you're doing subjects with C++ and JavaScript, and you kept putting semicolons everywhere while you were teaching, would sometimes write the wrong if statements and loops. Yeah. I think that's such a funny thing, and it's nearly a good thing to show students where you're just like, I'm doing it like this, and they go, wait up, is that this other language? And you're just like, yes, it is this other language. Let's go back to the one we're in now. Because it kind of normalizes the fact that we jump between languages. Because I think it's good. Like, this is the thing I always used to joke about. Is like, I'll teach you one programming language, then I'll teach you a second programming language, and now you know all of them. And it's not that simple, obviously, but it is nearly. When you learn how to jump from one language to another, and then you realize how similar a lot of programming languages are, and then you kind of build up this capability to jump between any language. Not to say that you can really do depth in any of those languages with a simple jump, but it means that, like, it's not like you're stuck on the first language you learnt and you'll never be able to do any others. Once you've learnt 2 programming languages, you really have this fundamental capability to jump to other languages, which is really good. Okay, 3rd to last item should be -3, because there's no 0 indexing from the rear of the array. Yep. Haljan says, as a language nerd, definitely not that simple. Yeah, it's not. It's a, yeah, right. That's why I had to preface that by it's not that simple, but the ability to jump between languages is a really kind of important early skill, I think, to get people out of thinking that they only know one. I always like to say that if I teach people the second language they've ever learned, it's like now I've opened the door so you can jump into any languages. Okay, can't access non-existent indices, yes, and that will cause an error, which is good. Couple of ways you can check is array size. So you check the size and then you decide whether you access indices or not. So yes, 4 things in there. Maximum index you can access is the size. Yes, good. Hang on. Oh yeah, right. Is size -1. I was like, it's not the size. I've read it wrong, and then I got confused. Yep. So last index is size -1. Use the last index. Yep, cool. All right. Practice. In our game, players an inventory that works as an array under the hood. That's very common. They want to equip a sword and a shield to buff their characters. Like before, we need you to find them in the array. You need to access elements in the inventory array by index to do so. Do we need to access by index? I was going to loop through until we found a sword and a shield, but let's not, because we're going to follow what they're saying. Call the use item function with the item as an argument to use an item. For example, you can use the first item by calling use item 0. I don't exactly understand what we're doing here because the inventory is empty. I'm going to have to assume that they will fill out the inventory, or this is what they're going to do. And we're supposed to use what's written here in our function. But it's weird that why is this empty and this is populated? Like, these are no longer correlated, which is awkward. Oh, wait. Maybe these are items on the ground and we're going to pick them up and put them in our inventory? I don't know. Anyway. Works as an around. You want to equip a sword and a shield to buff their characters. We need you to find them in the array. You need to access elements in the inventory array by index to do so. Yeah, I feel like I don't have enough information here. But I'm just gonna try something like this, where it's like use item. Wait, no, that use item's going to be a function of the item itself. So inventory. I assume that because we're looking at this here, that they just want me to do it explicitly. So what if I just do this, because that's a shield, and then do 3 because that's a sword? Because I don't know what the question is. Like, in my head, I'm like, let us iterate through this and then check if it's a shield and then use it if it's correct. Then keep iterating, check if it's a sword and use it. But I think what they're saying is this is it and just do it. Hello, what is it? Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Did I teach you at some point? I assume so. Nope. Okay. So I am not doing what they wanted. It's weird. Like, I'm not getting enough information in this here to see. Well, let's open up the hints and see. Use the function use item, whether item is an element of the inventory. Oh, so I'm using the wrong thing. The use item is not part of the item. So it's in this format. Oh, I'm just going to delete this, copy this line. Okay, so I had the syntax wrong for use item. Usually they have here they have the API. Oh, I guess it's there. Okay, let's see if this is what they wanted. Okay, right, I've picked the right items now. So this array that was visually there, which wasn't in here. So my inventory was empty and use item was putting it into my inventory, maybe? I'm not sure. It's hard when you can't see the back end and you can't see whatchamacallit, what other functions are leading to this. But I do understand they're trying not to confuse people. Okay, we have train tracks broken down into little chunks. We use them to make modular tracks and draw circuits of all shapes and sizes. However, several chunks are misaligned. You need to find them in the tracks array and pass them to the align function. To do so, you need to access the array by index. This time, though, you need to access them with negative indices. Okay. So, right? This is weird. I would expect if there's an align function, that there's an API thing like there were in the other things here that says, this is the align function, and this is how you give it input. So I assume that it's the same format as the inventory one. And we've got -1, -2 here. And I'm gonna... Oh, wait. No, -2 was correct. -1 is out of alignment. -1, and then 3 and 4. Maybe. So that should move this bit, and this bit. And then everything should be in alignment because this thing's in line with the rest of the track. Let's see if that works. Okay. It's funny because this bit I was expecting different challenges, but that's good. All right. So the only downside that I see there is that they didn't actually specify the two functions that I was using before we kind of got thrown into it, but should be okay. All right, dictionaries. So we are now going into key value pair data storage, which is always handy. In the last lesson, we used an array. With just an array of item names, we can't easily keep track of the amount of each item. Instead, we can bundle item names and amounts into a single dictionary. Dictionary is a data structure that allows you to map pairs of values. In the pair, we call the first value a key, and we use it to access the second. Keys and values. To find a dictionary, we use curly brackets. Oh, there are curly brackets now. Colon separates each key and its value. A comma separates each key and value pair. So the key, colon to the value. Dictionaries can hold any values. So you can map any value to any other value, which is useful. Use the name of an item as a key and the amount as the corresponding value. Right. Here we match the name, a string, to the amount and number. The key could be a string, a number, or even a vector. So we can map things to any relation to another. Although we can have all of these different keys, keep in mind that every key has to be unique. That means we couldn't have a dictionary with two of the same item, two of the same key leading to different values. Yeah, that would kind of break the whole thing. Duplicate key found in dictionary literal. In the above example, which key would cause an error? Healing heart is causing the error. Which key would? I mean, if you added a sword or a shield, they'd also cause errors, but I'm assuming they're just talking about this one. Yes. How dictionaries work under the hood. Let's, I've already said, I'm going to click on it. Hash algorithm, yes. I mean, I used to call these hash tables when I was originally teaching them. So yes, we know that this is a hashing algorithm, so it should be a very efficient accessing, depending on the hash itself. We access value keys by writing dictionary, the dictionary name with the key in between the square brackets. Yeah, so that's how we access a value. Okay, how would you access how many gems a player has? Right, the item count is equal to inventory gems. So that's the key. And we can change values, so we can go into the key and add 1. So this should add another healing heart. There you go. And we can keep pressing run and we get more hearts because that's the run. Okay. So let's practice using dictionaries and let's see, with me kind of flying through that one because it's like, again, a data structure I already know. Let us see whether I can get this right. Okay. We use a dictionary for the player's inventory. We define the inventory variable for you, but it contains no items. Give the following items by adding correct keys and values to the dictionary. So I assume we're not adding things by a function or anything, but we're just explicitly putting them in here. So, oops. Healing heart. There's 3 of them. They're comma separated? I assume they're comma separated. Gems. 9 of them. And 1 sword. Cool. So we know how to instantiate a dictionary. We want to change the item counts in the player's inventory whenever the player picks up or uses an item. We've started the add item function for you. The inventory dictionary should use the item name parameter as the key to access its values, and we should increase the value by amount. Test this practice, we'll use the add item function to increase the item count of healing heart, gems, and sword. Okay. I'm going to assume there's no edge cases here. That we're not checking if it already exists or not and needs to be added to the dictionary, because we haven't actually been told how to add something to a dictionary other than explicitly instantiating it. So we're just going to assume it's already there when we do this. So add item name amount means, oh, we don't even have the declaration of the dictionary anymore. So I'm just assuming this exists. So the function gives us the item name and the amount. And I assume that's all we need to do. So you find the item and you add that amount to it. Yes. Okay, good. Looping over dictionaries. So just like an array, you can loop over dictionaries. You can either loop over their keys and values, or you can loop over both their keys and values. I assume that means you can loop over either, but I'm not sure. Halogen says, Python dictionary keys act like variables. You don't need to instantiate it. You just start using it like it exists. Right. So if we had nothing in our inventory, so if they'd actually had an inventory with none of the text in it. I mean, this is the weird thing, was like they have the example with the inventory in the first example. In the second example, there was no variable called inventory, so I just had to assume that there was a variable called inventory. But if they don't exist, then they will be created as new keys, which is good, because otherwise, like, you have to go to the trouble of first checking that it exists, then creating it, then adding to the number. If you go, I want to modify this, and then Python just kind of goes, yeah, we'll just create it for you if it didn't exist. To be fair, they told you it would be called inventory. Yeah. I think it's because I read it really quickly. I just skip over it, and then I look at the code. It was exactly like, like so many of us are like that, where we're like, yeah, human words, whatever. Where's the code? And then we look at the code. If there isn't enough information in the code, then we go back to the human words. And so I'm basically confusing myself by kind of speed running instead of just taking the time to absorb the information before I code. I always find it funny, and I always laugh that I teach people what I think are the best ways to do things. And then when you come down to actually watch me doing stuff, you're like, Mark, why don't you don't listen to yourself, do you? You told all these people the best way to do things, and then you're just like, yeah, YOLO, let's go. So it's just like, I always laugh. It's always funny because I'm like, I know theoretically what makes a really good programmer, and then I know what I do. So I know it's good, right? Because like I was just like, couldn't be me. Yeah, right. Um, it's good. I think it served me well as a teacher because it meant that I always had sympathy for people who would take shortcuts and stuff and be like, I know, I know. I used to have things where I would show people stuff and I'd be like, all right, here's the process you should follow to get things done. And here is like the bit where you've left it to the last minute and you've got 2 hours before the due date. Here's what I think you should do if you only have that much time. If you're pulling an all-nighter the night before it's due, here are the things I think you should focus on. So it was my way of just going, yeah, I know you're gonna do it, and if you're gonna do it, I still think that you can learn this. So focus on these things because these are the things that I think are the most important in this particular assignment and stuff. So always fun. Okay, so we're displaying the contents of an inventory. So for every item name in the keys, print the item name. So these are the things you have, and they're not worried about the numbers of them. You could probably print not just the name, but the amount as well. But it's something you do so much that you don't need to call the function. So this. So if we just loop, it will loop over the keys by default. So you don't have to say keys. You just go in inventory and it will use keys. You can get the values using dictionary key. So this is the one I was thinking of where you say what it is and how many you have. So item count is equal to accessing the dictionary. I mean, you don't even need this. You could have just put this in here and you wouldn't have had to like, what are we like, implicit casting? Oh, it's not implicit, explicit casting here. Yeah. I mean, they didn't even talk about that, what they're doing there. Okay. Instead of printing the key value pairs to the output console, we can code and call a dedicated function that displays items in the user interface. So if we say for item name inventory, count add item. So item count is equal to the number of things they have there. And then add item is, so this thing's going through and adding one to every item in the inventory. Or add item was the thing that we had before. I'm not sure. There's something in that add item there. But anyway, we'll figure that out later. Mapping grid cells to units. Interesting. We can also use a dictionary to map units to their position on a game board. This is how you typically code a board game, grid-based RPG, or tactical RPG. Oh, that's cool. So that way everything's location is put into one dictionary, and that way also you can't have two things occupying the same square. That's when we'll get errors. So instead of string keys, we can use a vector key. The only limitation is every key must be unique. Yep. For loop, you can use key value pairs to place units on the board at the start of a game. For every cell in unit cells, we find the unit that's there, and then we add that unit to that cell. So I think this add is accessing the graphical side of things in the same way. And this add was taking the stuff in the inventory array and putting them actually into the game, which is here. So we're not just implicitly kind of reading the inventory array. There's something else happening which puts it here. Okay. So for loop to put people in their positions, and they have been given positions in advance. Okay, we're going to loop over dictionaries and process their content in this next exercise. We use a dictionary to represent the player's inventory in this game. Dictionary keys are the name of the items, and they map to the number of items that the player owns. You need to loop over the dictionary and display the name and amount of every item in the inventory. To do so, call the display item function. It takes two arguments, the item name and the item amount. Okay, display item. Okay, checks all items are displayed. Code uses a for loop. For item in inventory, display item, and the first thing is the item's name. That should be the key, so I should just be able to access that via item. And the second thing is the amount, which is accessing the value. That should be everything that I need. Yes, very good, very good. Next one. This is the positions thing, and place unit is going to take the unit and put them in the spot they're supposed to be. So using a for loop, place unit. So similar thing for unit in units. So for each square, we place the thing in its position. So we use the place unit function, and it says the cell is the vector 2 and the unit type is a string. So the first thing is the vector 2, and then the second thing is the name of the thing that goes there. That should run. Yes, great. We're looping through them all and putting them in position. Nice and easy. This is good. And I guess also if you had problems with this stuff and you need to look it up and try it again and stuff like that, you're probably going to learn a lot more about what you're doing here. Value types. Okay, so our variables aren't all just all types. They are a particular type. I guess at the time they are used, they check what type it is, or if it's type they're created. We'll find out. You want to display a player's health. Your code tracks health as a whole number, a value of type integer. Okay, health 100, variable though. However, to display it on the player's screen, the computer wants text and needs a value of type string. You can concatenate two strings with the plus operator. Hello there. They missed a chance to say hello world there, but anyway. So the following code, like, it looks like it could work at first glance. Oh yeah, classic adding a string to an integer and hoping it would work. The result is like, did you want a string with a number on the end, or did you want to convert this into a number and then add these numbers together? Strange. Running this code, we get this strange error. String and int, invalid operand, string and int in the operator plus. So that's fair enough. If you've got a plus, it's like kind of undefined what adding a string to a number would do. Tells you can't use those values. In that case, you need to convert the health number into a string, and then it becomes a string concatenation. Converting values into strings. Call the string function, which is something we saw before when we were casting something before. You can use this function whenever you want to turn some number or vector into text. Well, that's nice. All the basic variable types can be converted into text. So if we run this, we'll get health, and then it converts the integer to a number. Meanwhile, JavaScript. So how does JavaScript, like, again, I haven't spent that much time with it. JavaScript, I think, doesn't strongly type, right? So every variable is just a variable, in which case this works, right? But I'm not sure actually what it would do. Would this be a string because the first half is string, and so it would just convert this one into a string? And if you did it the other way around, it would be a number result because the first one was a number. I actually haven't done enough JavaScript to know. I should count myself lucky that I have done so little JavaScript. I don't know that. Oh, Mitchell, internet was bad. Um, I can understand your internet being bad at the moment with the weather like it is. Um, I assume that that screws with cables and stuff like that occasionally. Anyway, converting strings into numbers, int and float functions. Oh, right. You can convert strings into numbers as well using ints and floats. So, whole number, so you can take string input and turn it into an integer. You haven't used it much, but seen a lot of scary memes about it. I think JavaScript is one of those things where a really loose kind of like hacked together language was accidentally adopted by a massive amount of the computing industry. Wikipedia says it's weakly typed though. Yeah. Um it's interesting though, right? It's going to be weakly typed, but what behavior are you going to get out of it? Do I have anything that runs a JavaScript where we could test it? Not quickly and easily. I mean, I've got VS Code, but I can't be bothered firing it up and creating a JavaScript file or anything. I don't even know the process either because I don't know JavaScript. Anyway, some types are partially compatible. Most types are incompatible. You can't directly add or multiply an array with a number. That makes sense, unless you're doing matrices, in which case you'd want that to work. However, some types are partially compatible. You can multiply or divide a vector by a number. Oh, so the matrix multiplication does work. So this should multiply both numbers? Yeah, okay. Browser. I mean, yeah, you could just run, like, can we? I'm sure. Hang on. I'm just gonna type in run JavaScript online compiler. Here we go. Start coding JavaScript. All right. Okay. Oh, log to console message. Message is this. Okay. Message is hello world. And this is hello world. So let's make this non-const. Does that break stuff? Message equals message plus 10. Does JavaScript have oh, okay. So that's just a string with a 10 on the end. Let's try this the other way around. 10 plus message. Right. Okay. So no matter what happens, it's making it into a string. Let's try multiplying this and see what happens. Oh, there you go. Good old Nan. Nan, there's a problem with my code. So when it is unable to deal with it, there's no operator overload where this works. It just gives up, which is fair enough. Okay. Yeah. So there's no way it knows how to work with a string and a number with a multiplication. But when you do plus, it just converts the number into a string, which is fair enough. It's one way of dealing with it so that it is predictable in a sense. There is no way to... Oh, hang on. Oh, okay. All right. So there's another interesting experiment. Yeah, Halogen. Yeah, exactly. We're in exactly the same mindset. I'm just like, what if this is a number? And then we add that number to that number. It still disregards the numerical value of this string. I don't know how small this is on your screen. Sorry. Oh, I can't zoom. Oh, well. Anyway, I made the message the number 100 in a string, and I tried to add that string to the number 10, and all it has done here is concatenate the number 100 to the number 10. Oh, I have to try negative? Okay. Because that forces it. Oh, oh, this is actually very bad because now certain things will convert the message into a number and other things won't. So multiplication, um, division, and subtraction will treat the string number as a number, but addition will treat the string as a string. That I can understand why this has memes around it because it's like, okay, you said 2 plus 2 minus 2. Okay, so message plus message minus message. Oh, I get it. This is going to do weird things, right? Message plus message would have done 100,100, and then it would have minused the message, which took 100 away. So I can see where if you 2 plus 2 minus 2, you're going to end up with 220. Oh, right. Because it's going left to right, and it's appending two strings together to get 22. And then it's minusing the number 2 because this is a string concatenation and this is a mathematical operation. And this code looks like this is horrible, right? Because this looks like, oh yeah, it's just all going to do maths, but it's not. It's going to pick and choose. The plus is going to be a concatenation, but the other things are going to be arithmetical. Oh, that's horrible. This is just bugs waiting to happen, basically. Like, if you get this kind of very ill-defined set of operators, like you've got 4 basic mathematical operators that you're going to use, and one of them has specifically different behavior at different times. That is scary. All right, great. That was a lovely dive into some JavaScript, and we will pray that none of us get sent into JavaScript again. Or if you ever do, you can convince whoever you're working with to use TypeScript instead, and that should fix all of those problems. I assume TypeScript is strongly typed, where it's just like, nah, if you want to add these things, you need to actually say what they're going to be. Yet it is the backbone of the interfaceable internet. Yes, I know. It's so scary. I think a lot of the world is moving to TypeScript. Hopefully a lot of it, as fast as possible, is moving to TypeScript, but that doesn't mean that like this huge amount of the internet is still like happily running JavaScript. And doing very bad arithmetic while we're there. Okay. Here we can print, we can multiply vectors by numbers, they're saying. And this only works because other developers defined that operation for you under the hood. However, you cannot directly add or subtract a number to a vector. You get an error. That's why in earlier lessons you had to access the subvariables of position to add numbers to them. I wonder if you can add 2 vectors, because adding 2 vectors together makes sense if you're looking at them geometrically. Like if a vector is an arrow and you've got this arrow plus this arrow, it should equal like the vertical arrow between the two. But I don't know if they do that, but we'll see. Take the following division, 3 on 2. What result would you expect to get? 1.5? Oh, are we talking integer truncation here? Yeah, we are. Okay, 1.5, but because it's an integer, becomes 1. And like, wait, what? No, the division of 2 whole numbers should always result in a whole number. So, we're getting, what's it called? Type, is it perseverance? Type persistence, I think is the term, where if all these things are the same type, the output will always be the same type. Is that the right term? Type persistence? I don't know. You know, the funniest thing is like, I taught this stuff, taught the fundamentals, but like whether I actually remember the proper noun names for things is very, very shaky. I always have to write that stuff down. I'm just like, yeah, it's going to be the same I think that's probably one of the strengths in the way I taught stuff, because I'd be like, I can't remember the fancy name for it. So here's an explanation in much more plain and clear English about what it actually is. And I think that probably helps when you're learning. Okay. If you divide decimal numbers instead, you'll get a decimal number as a result. So here's where we get our 1.5. Good. Even if it's just a 0, adding a decimal place tells the computer we want decimal numbers. Right. Right. So any floating points, and we'll get a floating point result. So learning your types is important, and using them correctly is important. Very good. Understanding mastering types is a key skill for developers. Right. Let's try our type stuff and see if I get it right. We want to display player's energy in the user interface. Currently, our code has a type error. We're trying to display a whole number while the display energy function expects a string. Use the string casting function. They don't call it casting at all. They haven't used that word at all. So I think we're trying to simplify the language by not saying that forcing a variable into a particular type has a different name than another function, which is pretty good. Type preservation, not persistence, right? I was close. Okay, using string function, clear the type error and make the energy amount display on the interface. So all we're saying is that the energy is going to become a string. All right, very good, very good. So we can cast to a particular type. Now, game shops. Let the player type numbers to select the number of items they want to buy or sell. So the player input, get player input, goes in as a string. The task is convert the player's input into numbers for the shop's code to work. Use the int function to turn a string into the int. Convert the player's input into a whole number and store the result in the item count variable. Okay. Item count equals an integer conversion of the player input. Sweet. It is nice when you're doing things you already know they're going to be right. I think that's like, you have full understanding of something. You're like, I know why this is correct. And then things are fine. The worst is when you know why something's correct and then the tests are wrong. And you're like, oh no, that means I fundamentally misunderstood the thing that I'm trying to do. Just give me a sec. I will be right back. Where's my BRB? All right, I'm back. All right, what's our next thing? Specifying types with type hints. By default, GDScript will call what we call a dynamically typed language. That means you can just write variables, assign them a value, and assign them another value with a different type. So we can do this. We assign it a number, and it's an int, and then when we assign it some text, it becomes a string. Unlike in some other languages, in GDScript, the following code is valid. So we can run this, some text comes out. This feature often causes problems down the line. Yes. Let's take one example. Cell size, decimal number, or 2D vector. Games use grids all the time, be it for grid-based gameplay or to make algorithms faster. When working with grids, you need to convert grid coordinates into positions in the game world all the time. To this, give each cell a size in pixels. Right, so we've got a grid on screen 50 pixels wide and high, and that's the cell size. And then there's a vector for the width and height of it. Vector 2 could simplify some calculations, for example, when converting grid coordinates to game world coordinates. Cell size is this. You multiply the cell by the cell size. And then you add half the cell size. So I think that's meaning they're finding the pixel that's in the middle of the cell. Both cell and cell size are vector 2 values. We can add them. All right, so we can add vector 2s to each other. However, if cell size is a float, we get a type error because you can't add a number to a vector. Worse, due to dynamic typing, we won't get an error in the right way. Oh, we won't get an error right away. We'll only get an error when calling grid to world. Oh, so it's going to allow all this arithmetic to happen, even though it can't do a float multiplied by a vector. Oh no, float. Oh no, it can do a float multiplied by a vector, but it can't add to both elements of the vector 2. So it'll do something here, and then the result will be wrong here, and your error is going to be in the wrong place. That's a big problem, because we're learning we only have small code examples, but your game's code will get long and split into many files. Yes, and when coding, you often forget about the code you wrote several weeks ago. This is good advice. With a lot of code, it could take hours of play before players trigger a type error in your code. Yeah, and then you don't know where it is. Yeah. Fortunately, GDScript has type hints. Let the computer know the value type you want for variables and report errors before running the code. All right, so this is like, it's nearly like strongly typing something where you go, I intend for this particular variable to be of this particular type. So tell me if I ever try to make it not that type or do something with it that is not allowed for that type. You want cell size to only accept vector 2 values like so. Cell size type vector 2 is equal to such and such. This is so funny, the effort that you go to be like, okay, people want to use this like a typed language, so we're just gonna go to all this extra effort to make it a typed language. If you try to replace cell size with the value of another type later, the computer will not let you. And that's at the parser level. So that's like pre-compilation. Assigned values type float does not match vector 2. Let the computer figure it out. GDScript comes with a feature called type inference. Many cases, but not all, the computer can figure out the type of variable for you. So I assume this is on instantiation. Yeah. I guess this is nice because you got the option. You can type a variable or you can not type a variable. I feel like I'm in the kind of mood where I would only ever instantiate variables like this, where it's like we always try to type it and then we expect it to not change. Unless we're trying to print out numbers and stuff, right? So sometimes we need them untyped, right? I'll just saying no, explicit typing, it's already strong because it will throw errors. We're talking about this or Python? I can't remember I can't remember what I was saying when you said nope. So there's something I was saying that's not entirely correct there, but we'll figure that out. Okay. So it takes a little typing, yet you get the benefits of using type hints, like the computer reporting errors better and faster. Why bother to add hints? When you give language hints like that, it will prevent major type errors. Yes, this is good. When you work in Godot, you'll see that the computer can report issues as you write the code. This makes the benefit even greater. Yeah. Type hints can help improve readability of your code as well. Puts more information directly in the code. Yeah. Incredible third benefit, they said. When you said strongly typed. Yeah, sorry. It's not strongly typed. It's just typed. What are you saying? Explicit typing, not strong type. Because strong is um oh man, I forget the definitions. Strong is like you're forced to use types and you cannot stray from that, right? And adding type hints makes it strongly typed, because now you'll get errors if you ever try to do anything that's not typed with those particular variables. Maybe. I think I'm right there. Anyway, I will continue. Incredible third benefit for you: by using type hints, you will learn types much faster. This is excellent for learning. This is why our first languages are not usually things with a var in it, because we like to have strong typing when we're teaching people about things. Okay, we will write correct type hints to make the code error-free. All right. We have... Oh, this is wrong. Anyway, let's read the goal before I jump in. I'll just say the introduction of type hints specifically. Adding hints makes it statically typed instead of dynamically. Yeah, because it's forcing types. Our variables get the correct values, but not the right hints. Using your type foo, add the correct type names in the variable definitions. You need to type the type name between the colon and the equal sign. Note, you cannot use type inference in this practice. You need to write the type name in full. Okay, so my first thing before reading the goal was like, hey, this is wrong. And it's correct that this is wrong. This vector here is a vector 2. So I assume we can just say vector 2. This is a string. Was string in capitals? I think it was. This is not a vector 2. This is an int. And this is a float. Did we have floats? I think we had floats. I mean, it has syntax highlighted, so it's likely to be correct. Yes. All right. Good. So we can infer. It is the other way around in this practice. The type hints are fine, but the values are not. Task is to fix the values after the equal sign so they match the type hint of each variable. So this is an int. Does it matter which variable? Maybe we're swapping these things around. So I'm just gonna... int there. String there. This is the vector 2. There's the float. There's the vector 2. I don't know if I needed the exact things. I probably could have put any values in here so long as the types matched, but it felt like I wanted to use the values that they had. All right. Very good. Continue with the course. We're pretty close to finishing. Oh, we are finished. Congratulations. You completed Learn GD script from 0. Now you have the basics you need to make games with the Godot game engine. You can keep learning with the free series Getting Started with Godot. That's probably where we're going right now. This is an open source project. Like Godot, this app and course is free and open source. You can find the app source code and contribute translations here. Learn GD script from 0 GitHub. Oh, those little bits that I thought needed API information, I could go in there and contribute. Let's open that and leave that open in this window so I can go back later. Countries are welcome if you feel like giving a hand. Need to follow some guidelines. So I just need to learn what exactly they want. And I can say improvement. Maybe not bug fix, but improvement in... Yeah, so I can have a look at this later and see if I can help them out with bits that I thought needed slightly more information. Okay, getting started with Godot. So, learn to code with GD script, overview of Godot's key concepts. So I think there's sections in here I haven't read yet. Although, what are we at? 9:54 p.m. Maybe there kind of isn't enough time for me to jump into something new and then go deep into it now. So maybe next time we dive into the engine, Or I can at least have a look at some of these things, right? So we were here, learn to code with GD script, and we have done that. Overview of Godot's key concepts. So this is the actual interface that we'd be doing things in. Roles extractions to build your applications. In Godot, a game is a tree of nodes that you group together into scenes. So everything's organized in a hierarchical structure. You can then wire these nodes so they can communicate using signals. Right, so objects wired to each other can affect each other. These are the 4 concepts you will learn here. We're going to look at them briefly to give you a sense of how the engine works. In the Getting Started series, you will get to use them in practice. So there's scenes, nodes are objects. Scene tree has hierarchical objects, and signals, nodes emit signals when some event occurs. So this is the trigger system, I guess you would call that in other engines. Cool. Nodes, scene tree, and signals are 4 concepts in Godot that you can manipulate all the time. Nodes are your game's smallest building blocks. You combine them to create scenes that you then combine and nest into the game tree. Cool. First look at... I said I wasn't going to go into it, but I am. Because I think I can read this stuff and have a look at it. And then next time, when we come back together, I will do the interactive learning how to make things. Because I'm sure that there's probably a step-by-step make a game from scratch kind of thing that I want to follow to get a feel for the interface and how to use it. So you make a project. Right, so there are projects here that you can just copy and learn from. And then here's the editor. So 3D editor. To learn more, read other things. 5 main scenes. 5 main screens, sorry. Editor, 2D, 3D, script, game, and asset library. Right. So for ours, it's probably spending a lot of time in 2D, script, maybe game. Asset library, we'll see what they have, right? 2D screen for all types of games. In addition to 2D games, 2D screens where you build your interfaces. Right. So everything's at the screen surface level. It's got a lot of 3D as well. I thought Godot was mostly a 2D engine, but they must have expanded it more over time. Okay. There's a demo here as well. Maybe. All right. We're starting to go deep here, so I'm gonna hold off here because we're at a nice place at the end of the 2 hours where we've finished all of the coding thing. Right, step by step. Series builds on the introduction of Godot. Following lessons are here to prepare you for your first 2D game. Step-by-step tutorial where you code a game from scratch. That's what we'll do next time. So I don't want to start it now because it will just be like a few minutes in. It's better that we do this thing from fresh next time. So this will be a good test because it'll be like, now that I've kind of gone through the Godot script learning, I should be able to code in this language. Now I need to understand how the game engine itself does all of its kind of interface and bits and pieces. And I think your first 2D game is the perfect thing. So next time we come together, next week, I will read through all this stuff and then we'll start working on your first 2D game. And then when I get to the end of that, I should be in a good position to actually start saying, all right, what concepts and things do I need to build for my game, and see if I can start prototyping and things like that. Okay, so I will wrap it up there. Let me put my notes in here. So I'm keeping all my notes in my document. What are we, 19th of the 5th? That is... Okay. we finished learning about GD script. It was a very nice tutorial. Next, we're going to learn Godot's interface, continuing their tutorials on how to make a 2D game. I will probably skip the 3D if I actually start making things. I think 2D will be enough. Unless I want to learn 3D in case we go 3D with this game. I don't know. We'll probably 2D. Oh, actually, if I make a pivot to go 3D, then we'll come back to the 3D tutorial. Otherwise, I reckon that's where we go. All right. So I will wrap it up there and say, okay, we've got the plan. We're going to go into Godot next time, go through there step by step, learning how to make things. And then we will potentially start doing things. Halogen saying, out of curiosity, do I have much history with open source projects? I don't. I've never really, like, I've used a bunch of them, but I've never really contributed that much to them. So this would be an interesting thing here to figure out how they add, whatchamacallit, how they add things to their interactive teaching things, find out where the bits are and try to help by adding things in. So it would be a fair bit of like learning how this works. Maybe that next time what we could do is like step through learning how to like actually contribute something to the GD quest thing. But we'll see. The other option is I just walk away and I let it go, right? Because it doesn't have to be something like I don't have to get involved. Like it's a good enough tutorial, even with a little bit of shaky stuff here and there. Like it's still very, very good tutorial. So if anything, I could just be like, I can report some feedback and that's it. And I can be, look, I think it might be more useful if in these sections, there's just a little bit more clarity on what the learner needs to do at this point, rather than going in deep and saying, look, I've recoded this section of it and I think you should use this instead. I'll leave it here. I'll leave it in this window for me to look at later. Alrighty, there we are for the evening. Thank you all for coming along and checking it out. We are inching ever closer towards actually making a game. I keep feeling like the more time I spend with Godot, the more I'm thinking, yeah, this would be perfectly fine. But, you know, we do need to test the actual engine interface. And if I don't like the engine interface, then we go somewhere else, you know, because like that's where I'd be spending a lot of time. So we'll see how we go. Halogen says, could be a fun excuse to peek at how they handle code input. Yeah, it could be fun. So let's say that's an option. Another option, look at contributing to GD script. What was it called? GD quest. To add in some information in the areas that I thought learner needed a bit more API or specific guidance. Yeah, so maybe we do that. We'll see. I'll decide, because it's kind of like, how many weeks have I been doing this, and do I want to start making game stuff, or do I want to just go wherever the exploration is interesting? Because the other thing, and I think the important thing that I was thinking about from the very beginning with this project is that, let's go back up here. Why are we doing this? For fun, coding is hobby, game design is teaching, and then joking that make bajillion dollars, which we would never do. None of this stuff says anything about doing it quickly or getting a result by a certain date or anything like that. So any exploration is valid. So going and taking a sidetrack and saying, let's contribute to an open source project, maybe that is worth doing, because it's an interesting thing to do. And again, the whole point of this is just to do hobby stuff, and the fact that I've never contributed to at least I don't think I have. I think I've never contributed to an open, it's been a long time. But yeah, let's just say I've never contributed to an open source project. So maybe it's worth doing that because it'll just be interesting to say, like, um, here's the thing that makes sense. I can kind of throw my expertise in as someone who was a professional educator. So let's learn how to contribute to an open source thing. So I'm gonna say another good option. So let's I'll think about it. I'll think about it, and I'll decide before next Monday where we go with the next one. Either we continue learning Godot, or we take a little sidetrack here to look at contributing and see which bits we wanted to change. Okay, that wraps it up for the evening. Thank you all for coming along. I hope you enjoyed my continued learning about GD script. It seems like, especially from the chat that I was getting there, that's very, very Python-y. So thanks for coming along while I was testing that out and everything. And I will see you all next week, where either we will look at contributing to GD Quest and I'll figure out how they're actually doing that interactive coding bit and where I can add bits. And if it's easy, if it's not easy, then it'll be like, I'll just leave a feedback report or something. And if I'm not doing that, it'll be continuing learning about Godot and going through their tutorial on how to make a 2D game. Okay,